Good morning.
Good morning.
I think every day we're starting before it really clicks in, so then you hear like this morning, whatever. It is what it is. Um, how are you, audience? You could respond if you wanted to. Uh, the first day we did this, I asked you how you were, and Dr. Mary said, I'm fine. And so then it sort of became this funny thing. Now I ask you how you are. How are
I'm
you?
good. How are you, my Tony?
I'm a little,
Cold?
I'm cold, but I'm also a little bit crusty this morning. Um, Yeah, I'm just feeling behind on a lot of things, and I'm feeling like I've got too many irons in the fire and I'm not doing any of them well, and that irritates me. Um, because I don't like being that person, and I don't like feeling like I'm half baking anything. So I just, whatever. We'll see how today
Fantastic.
goes. Today we're talking about something that our friend Scott and we talked about the other night. He came over and we appropriately socially distanced. And it was this idea of resignation, being resigned to things, um, which is something I think we all suffer with to varying degrees. Again, so much of what we talk about is inspired by Maz's addiction, but it is not singular to addiction or singular to being married to an addict. It's pretty singular to being alive. Um, so this idea of resignation, and I can't even remember the context of the conversation. Can you?
Yeah, it was. We were trying to find the correct term for how you're currently feeling about your hair.
Yes. Yes. Not amazing, I
I
can tell
think
you
it. I
that.
personally think it looks fantastic. But
My hair. Darn it. I forgot it was something so stupid. Well, anyway, this idea of um, like just resigning to things. So, um, we were on a bike ride yesterday, and I said something to you about, you know, it sort of seems like you and I both were kind of resigned to this sort of half life we were living when you were really drinking. Um, and I think that again is the piece that makes this such a universal idea that you could just we all get resigned to things. I gave the commencement address the December 2019 MSUM graduation, and I said that if someone had told me almost 25 years later, sitting in the exact same space because my theater degree is from MSUM, that I was okay with not having been become a movie star, I would have assumed that I had a traumatic brain injury, or that you were just a liar. How could I possibly ever been okay with that? Um, but in many ways, I'm resigned to my life, and I don't think that has to be a negative. In that instance, it's not a negative, but in the instance of you drinking and our my dissatisfaction with things, and likely yours too, we're going to talk about that tomorrow a little bit, um, is this idea of just being resigned to, well, I guess this is how it's going to be.
yeah, I think you do fall into it. It's you do fall into that. But another thing with that, and why it's probably difficult to get an addict to admit they have a problem, is you kind of it's a depression or a malaise, if that's a right,
Hmm.
or just a funk. Um, I sound like Danny Glover selling Barbie dolls, but
What is that?
SNL skit, when he's talking about Barbie, she was in malaise or
Oh,
in a
no, no,
funk.
no, not Danny Glover. Uh, keep talking. I'll
Anyway,
get
yeah.
it.
Anyway, so um, you kind of you do well. It is. It's resigning to something. I had resigned to the fact that this could be my lot in life, but deep down I didn't want it to be. Um, when we talked this morning about bringing this up about 10 minutes ago, I just had this, just reminding myself of the guy I shared a room with when I first woke up from the coma. He was in his third car crash. He's a chronic alcoholic, and I said goodbye and good luck to him, and he turned to me and he shook my hand and he said, well, "It's too late for me." So he had
And
resigned.
he was my age, right? Is that this guy?
Yeah, he was like 2 months younger than you, and he looked 60.
At least.
And that is resignation of an addiction. When he looked me right in the eye, and you know when you look someone in the eye, you can see you're attracted to someone because they have a spark or a glint in their eye. This
Yeah,
he had
just
nothing.
no,
He had resigned himself to be addicted to alcohol. It was
till it killed him.
yeah, and that was one of the many wake up calls I got. So I honestly I can't remember his name. I really have tried to
Boy, I
remember it, but
can't either.
he gave me probably an unintentional kick in the biscuits to get me think no this I can't this can't be me, and that was just one of the many starts to it. I mean, I've written about the fantastic counsellor who handed me my entire rear end on a plate, bless her, which has got me to this position right now. But that was the start of it. But watching someone's resignation to their addiction, I think helped spur me on to not being resigned about it myself.
Yeah, and I also think that the interesting piece of that, and we didn't discuss this, but you sort of set this up perfectly, is that I think the way out of any resignation over anything is not 0 to 100. I think it's 0 to 1. Can you take the first small step? You didn't hear him say that to you and say, "Great, now I'm cured. I'll never drink
No,
again. It's totally taken care of." It gave you your first inkling of a shift in your lens. So to make it a little bit more universal, if you are um, hmm, unhappy with your weight, let's go with weight, because I don't really know anyone who wakes up and thinks, "Yes, today is I'm my perfect weight." Um, if you're unhappy with your weight, you can't decide, "Well, I'm going to lose 45 pounds today." All you can decide the moment you wake up is, "Well, I'm not going to go have what I did yesterday, an oatmeal drop cookie. I'm not going to start my day with an oatmeal drop cookie. I'll wait till after I've had
well,
breakfast or whatever."
there's probably some nutritional value in that thing.
Oh, believe me, I can justify the nutritional value. Whole oats. Come on, it's
Well, you know,
basically oatmeal with sugar
roughage.
and chocolate. Yeah, I could justify those things left, right, and center. That's not the point. Also, you probably can have one. Um, I ate a container of them yesterday, so there's that,
Yeah.
because they fall into my special K addiction. Anyway, the point is, it's about what's the first step, what's the next step, how do you work your way out of resignation. You do it one small step at a time, so that you can look back and say, "Oh my gosh, I've made it 4 steps, five
Yeah.
steps."
Well,
um,
there are 12 steps. It's a
ah,
12-step program to get over addiction. And if you're struggling with that right now, just I got the fantastic piece of advice. I know many Johns. There's a lot of Johns in AA,
well,
but
there are a
one of
lot
them,
of Johns in the world.
yeah. Apparently there was this um, uh, run on calling their children John about 60 or 70 years ago because there's a host. So anyway, one of them told me, he said, if you're struggling with one of the steps, I'm not going to go into the steps, but they're written down from 1 to 12. He said, it's just written down in order. You don't have to do them in that order. He said, do the next one, the next step that feels right for you. So doing this one step at a time, seeing that guy's resignation was my first step personally to say, I really don't want, it wasn't like, oh, I'm cured. It was, I don't want that.
Yeah.
What do I do? What's the next thing I need to do to see if I don't get that?
I brought in a consultant who I had the really good fortune to work with, named Dave Viotti, and he's the founder of a company called Smallify. And the whole premise of the organization is make small bets. So if you are, it certainly works personally as well. And it really speaks to this idea of how can you gamble on something to make a change that, if it works, makes you feel successful, makes you feel like, oh, that worked. And if it doesn't work, doesn't ruin you. And I really think there's so much value in thinking of the world that way, as opposed to getting to the end before you've ever even started. I wonder, that morning that I came to pick you up, that you had that conversation with that man, I wonder if you could have even gone to Prairie and gone to inpatient treatment if you'd known how hard the steps of the next 4 weeks were going to be as a whole. Because you just have to.
No, nothing. You can't sit there and go, yeah, this will be easy, because it isn't. It's not supposed to be
But it's
easy.
also not about, again, thinking of it as a whole. It's about thinking of it, okay, today I have to do this piece, and then I have to do this piece. The same way we allow children to think about a toddler trying to put a square into a circle, like a puzzle of some sort. If the toddler tries the square and the rectangle and it doesn't fit, you don't say to the toddler, well, that's it. You had one shot and you screwed it up. Now give me the toy and you're done. No, you encourage the toddler to try another slot. And the toddler tries the circle and the square doesn't fit in the circle. And you don't say to the toddler, what's the matter with you? You tried two things and you failed both times. You don't say that. You say to the toddler, try it again, try another one. And then they put the square in the square slot. And what do? You celebrate with them. You don't say to them, well, I would have done it right the first time. You celebrate that win, because it builds their confidence and it affirms and confirms for them that they're on the right path. And it gives them the confidence they need to take the next learning step.
I think you've just perfectly explained why they give out chips for milestones of sobriety. I've kept all mine. They're in a.
Well, we'll bring them up one
Yeah.
day for show and tell.
Quinn designed a case for me to put them in. So I've got my 24-hour one, my 1 to 11 month one, and my
Oh, all your month ones too.
yeah one.
Oh, I'm
1
sorry,
to 11
I misunderstood
month,
you.
my 1
I'm
year,
sorry.
my 18 month, my 2 year, and my 3 year.
Yep.
And they do mean a lot to me. Now I put mine in a case. I'm not the only one who does that. Some people carry their most recent one around in their pocket for the duration it's valid. Could be a month, could be an entire year. And that's a reminder. That's their step. That's their. I've done this. What's the next one? And that, that's why they. I mean, as far as an addiction calls, it's like one day at a time. But I should think it's good advice to live your life.
Yeah.
Actually, if you haven't had an addiction at all, just sitting there going, "Yep, one day at a time," is, I actually think, some good advice to get through any day.
So the wrap up for today, I think, whether you're dealing with addiction yourself, or you have an addict in your life, or you're just up and watching us, the lesson for today is treat yourself, treat the person that you love the way you would treat the toddler who, after 2 or 3 or 4 or multiple tries, successfully gets the square block in the square slot. Treat them like that. Celebrate the win. Give them the courage and the confirmation to try the next hard thing, and be there to support them along the way, and be there to support yourself. You would never say to someone else the terrible things you say to yourself. So stop saying it to yourself too. Celebrate your small wins today, because that is really the only way any of us are ever going to make any change.
It's true. I mean, it's written all over. We see it on some bright little spark's been writing it on the sidewalk with chalk.
Yep.
And people have been saying it all over the place, especially today. Today in these days, if you can be anything in a world where you can be anything, be kind
to yourself and to others. All right. Have an excellent day. We'll see you tomorrow, where we start a 2-part series tomorrow and Monday.
Oh, it's a cliffhanger.
Dun, dun, dun. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.